Welcome back to another video. Thanks for watching. Some of you have been asking about how I turned up my John Deere 455 and you would like to do the same to yours, so that's what this video is all about today. Gonna walk you through what I've learned and figured out with these tractors, and by the end of the video you should know how to go about turning up your tractor. So yeah, we'll get started. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Let's get to it. All right, so now to turn it up, you're gonna need some room in here, especially up on top of your fuel filter area. So pull off your intake. It's a hose clamp here, 2 bolts down here, 2 bolts up in here, and the whole intake filter assembly, everything comes out. All right, now that the air intake's off, you're gonna need some room to work up in, kind of up above the fuel filter here. So take off your throttle cable bracket, which is this right here. It bolts to like the front side of your injector housing, or ejection pump housing. So it's right here in line with your dipstick. There's a bolt here and a bolt down below. Take those 2 bolts out, and then this bracket comes out. That gets your throttle cable out of the way. Something else you're going to want to take off is this fuel line here. It just comes up to tease into some stuff here. Pull that out of the way. The main fuel screw in these tractors is directly behind your dipstick. And mine's going to look different than yours because I kind of cut some stuff apart. But there's a way you can do it without doing that. I would not recommend that. So right behind your dipstick, there's going to be a round part, kind of like a tube or a pipe that comes out. It's all part of the housing, and it might come out an inch and a half or something, and there's going to be a cap in the end of that. So you want to get that cap out. The best way I found was to get a punch, a square pointed punch that's nice and sharp. You're able to stick that in the side of the cap, and then you can hit on it and pry that cap out sideways. The cap, like the housing, is going to be all around the fuel screw. You can see the fuel screw right there, but the housing is going to come out past that, and there's going to be a concave plug in the end of that housing, which is kind of like a little tube. Anyhow, you got to get that plug out. Some people drill them. I probably wouldn't do that because you're going to want to reuse that cap. But then to get the screw out, like to get this fuel screw out, that's the difficult part. And I actually had to make a tool to back that out because it's not a normal nut. And I'll pull it out just to show you what the screw actually looks like. But this is the tool I made. Doesn't look pretty, but it works. So I'm gonna pull that screw out and show you what it looks like. My homemade tool in there. Got a vise on it. I'm just gonna break this fuel screw loose. Or at least try. There we go. This is probably gonna be the most difficult part, is getting this figured, like either making a tool. I'm gonna try to give you the measurements of this tool so you can make one. That's probably gonna be the most difficult part of this whole deal. All right, so this is the fuel screw itself, the main one. There's this, if I can get this to focus. There's gonna be like a seal on it. But the nut, this is what the nut looks like. It's not a hex nut. It's got like 3 notches in it. And my homemade tool here. Presses in those notches to back that out. So let's go. I'm gonna try to give you some measurements for this tool. You're gonna have to make your own of sorts to get this fuel screw out. So I mean, I'm not quite sure what kind of measurements to give you for this, but if your teeth are 6 millimeters long, 4 millimeters wide, and You have one at 12 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and 8 o'clock. And you make those teeth on a 14 millimeter 3/8 drive socket. Should come really close to fitting this here nut. You might have to mess with it. Obviously that one there is like filed down to fit. I kind of pounded it on. But like there's not a tool you can buy for this. The farther that this fuel screw is pushed in, the less fuel it gets. So I think it's from factory, it's most of the way in. Well, we don't want it like that. We want as much fuel as possible. So, and you need to leave a little bit of threads. You need to leave a little threads on there to thread in the housing. So, maybe something like that. That's enough to thread in the housing. You put it in there. I mean, it's most of the way out from factory, but if you make it like that, then stuff can move internally a lot more. Put it in there like that. Whoops. So the fuel screw is just part of it, what I did to this tractor. The actual injection pump itself is right here where these 3 injector lines go in. If you want to tamper with that, what you can do is pull off your solenoid, just these 4 bolts here. Behind there is going to be a little linkage and a pin. You got to pull that pin out so you can pull the injection pump out the top. It's like a governor linkage. Just be really careful not to lose anything down in the housing. But once that's out, you can then remove this bolt, which holds on some fuel return lines. And you have 4 bolts holding the actual injection pump down in the housing. Once your injector lines are off, that'll all come out. And I have another video I'll drop in here that kind of shows what it looks like when it's out. But basically if I remember correctly, there's 2 Phillips screws on there that you just loosen a little bit. And then there's 2 flat-headed screws that you turn counterclockwise just a tiny bit, like not even a quarter turn. You can't turn them much at all. You just turn them a little bit till you feel some tension, and then tighten those Phillips screws back down, put it all back together, and somehow that makes it put out even more fuel. So I'll put that video in here. I sometimes wonder why I do what I do, but I pulled the top of the fuel injection pump off my tractor, and apparently if you loosen these screws and turn the other ones counterclockwise, somehow makes it pump out more fuel. So we're about to find out. Hopefully it don't blow up. Alright, so I think that's going to be the end of this video. I'm sorry I'm not better at explaining stuff, but at least you have an idea now what stuff looks like in these things. The 455s aren't as easy as some. I think the X series is easier, in my opinion. I've done a 748, I believe it is, and that was actually easier. The fuel screw isn't inside a housing. It's actually just a screw with a brass shield around it that you can take right off. So hopefully this gave you a decent idea of what's involved. If you're not comfortable doing it, I guess you could always bring it to me and I could do it for you. But anyhow, at least you know what stuff looks like now in some way, shape, or form. So that's it for this video. Have a good one, and we'll see you in the next.